In the room, we have a core representative, that is Sarah Gruen over here, as well as Scott Mills with About Saving Heat. He's going to talk about our education aspect later. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the Sustainable Building Regulation revisions. We had adopted these regulations and kind of have been adjusting it since we took on the 2015 Energy Code. And this ultimately marries the Energy Code with the regulations and adds a component to kind of elevate it. So last year we adopted a climate action plan. It was Eagle County's with basalt's amendments, or addendum, sorry. And that is saying we want to reduce our emissions 25% by 2025. And our baseline was 2014 levels, and then ultimately go down 80% by 2050. So we have a lot of work to do, and this is our allocation of emission levels. So the only way we're going to achieve any of those goals is by really tackling the built environment. So again, here's our timeline. In 2009, we adopted the regulations for type 1, and then 2015 kind of brought that over to type 2, commercial, multifamily. We adopted 2015 code in 2016, and then like I said, last year, that was our climate action plan, and on July 19th, these new regulations have taken place. So ultimately, we are embracing the Energy Code and adding the subcategories. It's a lot like the LEED rating system. These subcategories include site and water conservation, as well as recycling and reuse of materials, utilizing efficient framing techniques, recycled content materials, incentivizing renewable energy, utilizing indoor air quality, and there's also the innovation section. So within the Energy Code, there are a few compliance paths, and we have added a couple additional compliance paths outside of that. Ultimately, you can do the prescriptive path. It's a very component thinking way to the project, or you can go performance path, or even LEED or zero energy ready, and that's more of a holistic systems thinking of the project. So this is kind of our flow chart. Again, we have this is for type 1. We have our prescriptive, zero energy ready, performance, really maybe trying to get to the ERI, HERS rating, so really getting energy modeling done on the house beforehand and kind of gauging how it's going to perform before it's even built. And then we also have our LEED for Homes Gold that is exempt from our checklist. Here is type 2. So again, very similar, except instead of a zero energy ready, we kind of have an ASHRAE. That's a very nationally known system, as well as the building performance. Again, and this, please note that the building performance section is, you have to prove that it's going to perform 85% or less of the standard reference design. So type 1, it's just less than the standard reference design, but type 2, they want you 85% or less. And also, the other non-prescriptive paths, it kind of allows you more flexibility with the design. So, utilizing passive solar, heating techniques, and daylighting, and even like utilizing trade-offs. So instead of a certain solar heat gain coefficient, maybe you can make up for that in your wall R value. We also have kind of changed the minimum point thresholds. In the original SBRs, we were requiring a warehouse to have the same point threshold as a new construction building, so that's kind of wrong. And so we have adjusted it, added more categories for building types, as well as really made sure those thresholds were applicable to that building type. We have also added a continuing education requirement. Ultimately, anyone that's going to submit for permit will have to show that they've had these 2 hours of continuing education. Right now, the town of Basalt is providing this education at no cost through the Zero Energy Ready program that Scott is going to be teaching. And we will, we'll kind of go through other methods that we will accept, maybe any like LEED continuing ed or AIA, but ultimately, we are providing a program that we want you to take advantage of.
Most importantly, this session counts as
And
one.
this session counts as one of the 2, so good job. We've also compiled an SBR review committee. The committee is really designed to make interpretations of, some applications, as well as maybe grant minor exemptions based on unique circumstances or any hardships. And that is going to consist of our town manager, building official, Jim Wilson, our town planner, Susan Phillip, and a core representative, most likely Sarah. If you do decide to go LEED Gold or the Zero Energy Ready for the residential, we are offering a rebate of 25% off your building permit fees, and that is capped at $5,000, but that is one of our incentives. We're also adding a commentary section. This is not part of the code, but it's a companion document developed by, it's gonna be developed by the building official and kind of just give you more information. It's very similar to, if you're familiar with the international codes, they all come with commentaries to kind of explain each point a little better, if needed. For type 1, we have requirements for the exterior energy uses, so your spas, snow melt. Originally, we had required on-site offsetting of this, but now we are allowing off-site or a fee in lieu payment. We are going to do questions, a few questions specific to my presentation, and then we're gonna go on and do Scott's presentation and maybe save the bulk of questions for that. But if you have anything specific for me, let's hear it. Jeffrey?
So for on-site removal, can we go outside the building envelope?
Yes. Yes.
Permitted?
Yeah, but maybe we should explain one of the changes that we made to the code. And originally in SBR 1, if you were required to do offsetting, like a rent, you were not allowed previously to pay your way out if you were SBR 1. So mainly we're talking about single-family homes. So if you were doing a swimming pool or you were doing a spa that was over 62 square feet, you had to actually do it on site somewhere. And we're now allowing you to find a companion off-site location or to pay a fee in lieu at twice what you're mitigating for under the SBR 1. So that's kind of something new that we didn't have in the code before. Because before, if you were caught by a requirement to do the offsetting renewable energy, you actually had to do it on your property.
So my question is more for
Yeah, I realize what you, yeah.
Envelope, is that permitted
You're gonna have to do your larger structures in your building envelope and in your setbacks.
We just want to do ground mount, I guess is really the question.
You could do a ground mount. We were looking at
Outside the
doing,
envelope?
not outside the envelope, right. There, you have to be in the setbacks.
And real quick, I did want to highlight, for those of you not totally familiar with the energy code, some of the big changes are for the type 1, the residentials. We are requiring mechanical ventilation. It has to be balanced. That's your HRV, ERV. Blower door tests are required. They need to be at 3 to 5 air changes per hour, as well as duct sealing and duct testing will be required. There's a maximum U factor for windows. It's our 0.32, as well as for type 2 commercial, that's where we get into our continuous air barrier that is going to be shown on the drawings and confirmed in the field. And also exterior insulation is required, and therefore, because of that, we are requiring a moisture management strategy, just kind of, we'd want to know that you can confirm that the wall is going to dry either inwards or outwards. There's vestibules now required for projects larger than 3,000 square feet. And a gross window to wall area maximum. So just some things to think about. I know there's a lot of architects, a couple architects in the room, that you probably know.
And that's just like when you go the prescriptive route, so like if you're doing these other versions, you can, as long as you can make it pass, you're good, right?
So these will be mandatory, regardless.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Maybe when we, after
Yep.
Scott's presentation, we should bring up the checklist, and that's kind of helpful to maybe
Look at.
follow there,
Yep.
yeah.
Because
Can email
We can put we're going to, the presentation's gonna be available to click on from the website, but if you want the PowerPoint, we can put that on the website too.
Great,
Okay.
okay. No, one more question, the 3 to 5 air changes, that's not natural, that's CFM 50, right?
That's at, 50.
Okay. I'm the same man, huh?
All right, well, if that's
Yeah, let's
it.
go ahead and move to Scott Mills' presentation, and then at the end of that, we'll have questions from Scott, and then we can come back with questions with Amanda.
Perfect.
That's right. Okay, that's the second one you put up. We'll see as we get going.
Okay.
Or is that the first one? Because I gave you the new one to cover it with.
Amanda, did you erase the first one?
Oh.
No?
Should I erase the first one?
I'm curious which one was Scott's. Let's start over real quick. Oh, no, this is you. Okay, Scott, so let me know which one's you, and I'm gonna pull it from here.
I only pulled out a few.
But you were, this is your drive, so I'm happy to pull up whatever one was
Just
yours.
the lunch one. Right there, you just missed it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see how it comes out.
Okay, so, thank you. Here we go.
All right, so I'm Scott Mills, I'm with About Saving Heat. We're a building optimization retrofit company based out of Denver. We've been around about 40 years, done over 30,000 retrofits. I've been involved with about 1,000 myself. Our biggest project was 400 unit retrofit for the city of Aspen. My training, I've been trained in Passive House. I've worked with the city on LEED programs and different things. And through all the different certifications I've looked at, the one that I liked the most was the Zero Energy Ready. It's code-based, it's really straightforward, and the best part about it is it's really working with the builder on all the steps you need to build the best type of house possible. And it's, as you can see on these graphs below, the gray is the average house, blue is Energy Star, and the green is Zero Energy Ready. And by working through their program, you can become one of the top 1% of builders, architects, designers out there. The thing that they have that I never saw with Passive House and LEED and stuff is they have a very robust website. And so they've added their building solutions, so you can, if you look at this carousel, anything you're working on, you can bring that up. They're going to give you everything from CADs, how-to, best steps, best movements, program checklists, so you're always able to do the proper steps at the proper time. It's available on download either on your phone, iPad, different things like that, so you can actually take it out in the field and look at some of these different programs. Beyond that, they have a very extensive marketing plan, so that the biggest problem builders have is they say, well, I went out, I did all the work, nobody cares, nobody sees it, it just doesn't show up, now it shows up. They give you badging similar to LEED. You even can bring all your information out on the street during the build and afterwards in sales. So in the training that I give, I've really simplified it. It's normally a 6-hour session, and I've taken it down to 2 hours. 1 hour is based on the hows and why. The second hour is based on going through the website so you can understand and get all the information out of it. So the biggest point we need to understand is by 2050, building codes are projected to be zero energy, commercial and residential. Now, you can go every 3 years, 6 years, whatever it may be as they go along. We're really lucky right now. The whole valley's on 2015. But by 2018, 2021, everybody's going to be jogging into when they want to develop and move forward on these things. So you have the choice of always having these different things you can overlook, but as this has been put into the alternative code for basalt, and hopefully we can get it throughout the valley, it means once you do this program, it's good basically throughout your career and with everybody you're working with. So the big thing that I'm looking at is trying to show the financial side of why do we want to go to zero? Why do we want to add solar? Why do we want to have EV charging and things like that? Well, a big part of it is everybody thinks millennials and Gen Xers are all living in their mother's basement or garage, but actually they're now almost 60% of the new home buyers. And they're totally tuned into efficiency. They want things right. They're not looking, this is the first time we've moved away from square footage and location and have looked towards efficiency. So coming from a retrofit point of view, the biggest problem we see in homes is people come to us with comfort issues or financial issues where it's just too expensive to run. And what we have found out is through our energy usage, 85% of it is basically wasted heat between extraction, production, bringing it and transporting it, burning it, transmission lines, moving it into a leaky house. So much of it's lost. So we know 70% is in transportation and buildings, and this is what we can control. So if we can get to bringing solar online, all electric homes, going into electric vehicles, the best people we can look at, Thomas Edison, the CEO of Shell, the CEO of Duke Energy, one of the largest industrial utility providers in the Southeast, all say we're going electric and it's going to be solar. So what we're trying to do is show you the way to be able to do that, because we know the sun is free energy, free fuel, free heat forever within our lifestyle. So the class is going to go through and we're going to talk about how things have changed and how what we thought of many years ago has been streamlined and improved upon, so that now, through just basic building science, here's a house built in Colorado, $420 of propane to heat and supply for hot water and cooking, and they've done it on a HERS rating of 21. This is a zero energy ready home using all their basic principles. So our steps of success, and this is what we go through in the class, is orientation, air sealing, exterior insulation, big point, and interior air quality. All the codes we have going, 2009, 12, 2015, we're all moving in that direction. So what we do is just say, why don't we leapfrog? Why don't we go to it now? We know we can get away with it, but by adding good orientation, by adding good insulation, we can crush the size of our heating systems and invest into good indoor air quality at a very reasonable rate. The best thing about it is there's a 5 million home study done on homes that had side-by-side, apples to apples, had a certification of any sort, not specifically anything, not zero energy. It could be a Sacramento greenhouse as opposed to anything else. They found that they were getting almost a 10% premium over their next door neighbors without any certification. So again, moving in this direction is going to not only help pay for it, but it's actually going to make a profit. Now, when you look at what Basalt is giving you, what did you say, up to $5,000 off of Core actually has a $8,000, excuse me, zero energy. I've been in an attic all afternoon. I'm losing my voice, but they have an $8,000 prorated zero energy grant. So when you start looking at it, there's just on the table $10,000, $15,000 looking at it. I worked on a 50-unit, the tiny homes that Aspen Skiing Company did, and we found $40,000. We certified it zero energy ready. It wasn't zero energy. It was only a HERS. I think we came out at a HERS 58. But out of that, they got $40,000. So when you start looking at all these things that are out there, it really, there's not only a price point that it works just in the cost, but also the fact there's a lot of incentives out there. So when we go through, I try and give really practical ideas to the builders and architects of why do we want to have air sealing, some of the different ways they have it. Just understand that having this all planned out, this is from the solution centers. They give you all the drawings and give you all the information you need to lay out this stuff so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And one of my favorite things is, right now when you do your blower door for your CO, it's at CO. Can be very difficult. I know there are houses that have been worked on at that point, and it can become really a problem if you've got to go back and figure out where the leaks are. Trying to do baseboards and lights after the insulation, after the drywall's up, everything's done. So I give you some simple practical ideas like do it at the rough-in. Walls are open, no insulation, everything's there. You know, there's subcontractors that go out and they'll do all the air sealing for you just like you have insulation guys and roofing guys and all that. So what we need to do is understand how much needs to be done, but if you do it at the right time, it's great. And then I do some comparisons. Everybody's looking at, engineers and no offense to architects, they love things like this, designs that are 12 layers deep, and as I say, just every layer is a potential failure. If it's not done right, here's the Joe Stiebrick perfect wall based on exterior insulation, and it's basically 4 levels. And the good thing about it is exterior insulation is so magical because it kills your thermal bridging. And according to BPI, it gives you essentially doubling of the insulating value on the inside. You don't get it on a HERS score, you don't get it on anything else, but that's building science, and that's what they talk about. So you really get into this huge high performance level without having to go into a 12 or a 16-inch wall and do a lot of stuff, just by the use of exterior insulation, which is 2015 code, correct? So just having that. So the thing is with the Zero Energy Ready project, once you use 2015, you're 80, 90% there. It's only doing things like good indoor air quality and some water saving features and things like that, and you can get a certification with all the marketing support and things like that. So this really shows you what exterior insulation does to normal houses with normal insulation, and then with exterior, it just totally crushes the heat loss. So we go through all the different kinds of insulations, the best places to use them, and the best types of insulation, and just showing you all these basic things that you have to understand, that as you go through the plans, if you're a builder and you say, okay, where is the thermal and the air barrier? It needs to be on the same plane going out throughout the building, and you just need to understand where the living space is and where it's connected and how you're going to do it. So when people start worrying about ducts and having them sealed, is it going to be in the living conditioned area, unconditioned area? I say, well, here's a simple way around radiant heat. Radiant really isn't that much more expensive than putting in baseboard. You're still running the plumbing, and it's pretty straightforward. And then finally, we want to look at indoor air quality, and whether you need to put it in or not, there's no reason not to. Having good fresh air using an ERV system is just smart. And this is part of the Zero Energy Ready program, that all your buildings should have some sort of fresh air going in. And so the best part about all this is it's a robust system that will answer all your questions, that has the marketing, has the training, and it's code-based, so it's improvements on, but when you compare it to the 2015, it isn't a giant leap as you would think when you think passive house and LEED Platinum, a lot of these things where you have to have certifiers, they're looking over your shoulder, they're making a lot of stuff. This is really good for the building department, good for builders, because it's very understandable and pretty straightforward. So that's it.
So does anybody have questions directly to Scott?
Yeah, Scott, how much success have you had with engineers and architects?
Well, we're just starting it, but let's put it this way. I've done 50 units for the ski company. They had me come in and check one of their units. They're putting in these tiny houses over here at the KOA. And I told them, wow, you're really close. And they said, well, what do we got to do? So we went through it, got the HERS rating. There you go, it's really good. I had a guy had to get his blower door on the backside of Aspen. And I said, wow, this is really good. There's money on the table. So he went out and got himself a HERS rating on it. He came in with a HERS rating of 8. He got a full $8,000 on it. So that's great. It's there. It is not sold and marketed. This is why we're trying to make this the way forward, so people can look at money on the table, simplified education, simplified certification.
Is there any square footage cap in Basalt?
Yes. Well, most of the PUDs have, I mean, we do, and we have a total square foot cap of 5,000 that includes everything, so your garage and your storage and everything, and then
everything.
there's only a couple subdivisions in town that don't have an FAR percentage or actual cap in the specific land use approvals, and those are all capped at the 5,000. So if you're on Riverside Drive, by way of example, there's not an FAR, but you still are caught by the 5,000 square foot cap.
This is in my own interest, but will you have on the website, will you have certified people listed that can do the blower door test?
Yes, we intend
And how do I do that?
You're already in there, Charles. But, and again, these are points that are, you have to have all the steps and everything really laid out for people. The real key to this is it's a consumer thing, and nothing that we do can get to the consumer. Where our hope is that architects and builders, through the training, you can kind of sit around and do a bit of a charrette and look at this and say, you know what, it's not going to take much more. This guy, we're doing the exterior insulation, we got all these levels, there's money on the table, we're going to do a HERS going in, and this is what I recommend to builders, because it's very difficult to just do your own code work, but with the HERS, you've already got the first level of the plan review done. You know where you're at. There's a 10,000 unit study on HERS, having HERS reports. They're within 10% high or low of what the HERS rating was. That's what they came out with a year later when they went and backtracked. And the 10% up and down was based on occupant behavior more than improper testing or going through the software.
So you're gonna give these presentations, and have those been scheduled?
Well, we're looking to, I'm hoping we can do, we were talking about doing 2 before the end of the year.
Yeah,
just to
we're
warm
definitely
up.
gonna do 2 before the end of the year. And if there's a potential that we might do a third. I think one of them we'll probably schedule later in December, because the requirement kicks in January 1st, 2019. So when you come in the door on January 2nd with your building permit, you're going to have to prove that you have your 2 hours of training, the person who comes in with the building permit. If you don't, you're going to go home probably, or go up to our testing location and look to see what's available online to listen and watch. So we were kind of hoping to have one in the near future, and at least have some things in December. And maybe, Amanda, do you have the little list that you had before of the other trainings and stuff? Can you pull that up? Did you bring it with you?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just the ones that I have that are continuing education for LEAD is the movie nights and building tour, both on the 24th and the 25th of this month. So
And there's other ways of getting, I mean, good news, bad news. If you're coming in January 1st and you got to get something
Okay.
done, you can take alternative classes. But nothing is really based towards trying to simplify high-performance building practices, so you can really have something in your toolkit to be able to say, okay, these things work, whether I get certified or not, if I have continuous insulation and air sealing all on one plane. That's just smart. That's just design. That's not expense. If I do air sealing of the rim joist and the top plate, there's a little expense, but that's going to make getting your blower door test pretty much a slam dunk. Doing it at the rough end, these little simple steps, can really take a lot of the pain of the newer codes away, because you understand it a little more clearly.
Maybe, go ahead, Charlie.
Do you require duct blasting?
Yes.
And do you tell them to do it before they cover it up? Or do you recommend they do it before they?
That's what I recommend.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a blower.
Save yourself a lot of pain.
You're kind of in trouble if you don't pass.
Yeah. I've watched Fritz go through some nasty duct sealing scenarios. That's why I say, well, here's a simple way, go radiant. Boom, it's all gone,
Except that there are people, especially, it tends to be Midwestern people, like forced air, because they like air
Well, they may
conditioning. I'm
pay to
just,
play.
so you may or may not be able to just sell them on radiant,
But what we're trying to do is get these simplified points in everybody's toolkit, so they're not saying, radiant's more expensive, that's off the table. Oh, we only do ducts because that's what we've always done. But when you can see from a builder and an architect, you can save money, save time, and hopefully find ways of working into all this extra money on the table. That's the hope of going, because you're gonna go high performance either way. Down the road, it's all gonna come in. How much pain are you
So-
willing to take?
I was just wondering if, maybe Amanda, you could pull up the checklist, and, maybe the other couple tables that show the difference with the points that you have to have, given the path, but maybe if you pull up the,
Nice. Is it getting better?
Huh? I'm sorry. You know, I think that's really a Jim Wilson answer.
We're gonna skip that one. We don't have the resources. I don't think anybody in the valley has the resources to change every 3 years, so we're all now on the same schedule, and then we're gonna try and transition to the 2021.
I think hopefully the goal is to get us all on the same sync in terms of when everybody goes to the next level of code that we're kind of going all together. We kind of got off sync in the town of Basalt, and we were using our sustainable building regulations to bring you up to the correct level, and
We pretty much, we went 06 to 2015.
so that's a pretty big jump. So really, there's probably more impact by the fact that we went from 2006 to 2015 codes than the SBR themselves, but,
And that's the point of the ZER, because it's really just upgrades on the code, and now you're done. And so if they do start filtering through in a
Yeah.
different way, you can always say, well, I can just follow what I've got, I don't need to worry about it. And we're hopefully gonna have, in the same way, everybody's on the same
So
code
real,
year.
oh, here,
I have this as an alternative choice.
okay. So real quick, I just want to show you some of the,
we have 15
tables.
minutes left, so you're
Okay.
good.
oh, okay. So this is for our type 1. So you can see we have the prescriptive, performance, zero energy ready, compliance pass. And you can see the different levels of, we have 3 different levels of remodels, as well as new construction. So obviously, we're incentivizing smaller houses, and also, zero energy ready already takes into account the indoor air quality and energy, so that's why the points are decreasing. And then, this is within the checklist. These are each of our subcategories that I was talking about earlier, and you can see kind of how we're changing that. So we just want to make sure holistically the building's going to be sustainable. And then let me go ahead and show you the checklist.
And notice on the zero energy ready, by qualifying with that, you've done most of your 2015, so it takes a lot of it off the table. It isn't adding on, it's actually clearing a lot of it out.
So again,
I'm gonna turn off half the lights, and you guys tell me if it's too dark in here.
He's not gonna be able to hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to.
That's why I was asking if they can send it to me,
I'm gonna take a rest for a little while. It's killing me.
yeah. So this is, you can see this is our checklist. There's 3 tabs below. So we have the prescriptive, performance, and the zero energy ready. All of these have, however, our mandatory requirements, which are a part of the code. And when we go down after the mandatory requirements, it goes into our subsections, our subcategories, and then this column is our mandatory points. So, you know, however you want to get points from those line items, that's fine, but you have to meet a certain threshold for each subcategory. And I don't know if you want to keep scrolling down. And then again, yeah, this is kind of this is the summary of what we have. And if you want to click on the type 2, I'll kind of go over that. So this is where, so there's just one tab for the type 2. And you pick your performance path here. And then our mandatory requirements are changing over on this side. So this is new construction, tenant finish, restaurant. So this is tenant finish, non-restaurant. This is just your, you know, drywall paint. We have our remodel 1, 2, 3, additions, warehouses, multifamily, historic 1, and historic 2. And those are all defined in the commentary. But you can see when we go down, you know, we have a required thing here, but it's only applicable to those building types. So will you scroll down and we'll show you. Yep. So, wait, go up a little bit. So you can see here, yeah, and the energy, keep going up a little bit. So in our energy, you know, we're not requiring the continuous air barrier on these items, or these types of construction. And we are, with the star 1, that's only if the building is tempered. As well as, yeah, all the commissioning, so you can keep going down a little bit more. And then again, we have a few items on the indoor air quality, and then when we go all the way to the bottom, I'll show you kind of just where we want to hit and all the different types of construction we're trying to capture.
Can you also flip, just to kind of walk them through the commentary in its current form, or not?
Sure, I'm not. Jim, have you had a chance to look at the commentary since we've?
No.
No? Okay.
It's right here? It's right here. Unless you had it in there twice.
Okay, so this is our commentary. We are still kind of compiling this, but it does go through some of the definitions for the mandatory requirements. Yeah, if you want to keep going. As well as the levels. We have our compliance path flow charts. And then we also have our checklist. So this is still, that one's still a work in progress, but we are working on it. And this, I think it's just all checklists.
And the educational core requirements should be at the back.
Yeah, it should be on the very. And then we'll keep it updated with our education options. And then obviously, if you cannot make the ones that we're hosting, and you know we are trying to do this in conjunction with Core and Clear, and you know Zero Energy Ready. So, yeah, everyone's going to be on this list. And then if you cannot make any of those, we will. That's when we bring in the review committee to talk about other continuing education that we want to accept.
Does anybody have any questions on the checklist or anything that you want us to bring us back up?
All right. Well, you have I mean, you guys all signed in, so we'll follow up and you can have our contact info for any questions. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You know, I'm gonna have to study that.